Hi, my name is David L. Jones. I've been a member at St. Paul since 1935, 80 years now. And most of you probably don't know who I am because I'm up in the balcony all the time running the PA system for the 11 o'clock service, which I've been doing since before Paul Shepard was here. St. Paul has been probably the most influential thing that's ever happened in my life, and I'm thankful for it. Actually, I started at Highland Methodist Church in 1934. That's the first remembrance I have of church at all. And that was because I was in a Sunday school Christmas class that gave me a stocking with hard candy and an apple in it. So we go back a few years, and I remember putting my nickels in the offering plate then. The next year we moved to Trevilian Way, which brought us into the St. Paul Methodist area, and we immediately started attending St. Paul Church. I can remember very well the first important thing that happened to me, which wasn't very religious, but it was the 1937 flood, and I had to come up here, walked up to church with my mother, and they gave me a tetanus shot in the church basement, which wasn't very pleasant for a little kid. But I did go to Sunday school, walked to Sunday school each week with my mom, eventually my brother, and then a few years later, along with my sister, the three of us would trudge up here because we did not have a car. I can remember several Sunday school teachers I had, especially a Mrs. Bridges and a Mrs. Fowler, but they were very instrumental in my young life, and I really appreciated the influence they had on my life. I remember a big old man, husky old man that would come and visit us in our classes. His name was Mr. Smith. He was the superintendent of the Sunday schools, but I never forgot him. Other memories are Vacation Bible School, the Bible stories that we had. About 1939, World War II started. Of course, this was back in the Depression days. I was born in 1929, and every nickel counted, I remember back in those days. But I remember coming to St. Paul and watching the ladies roll bandages for the wounded, and I remember the ration books and everything that went along with World War drive, bonds, and remember going out and collecting pots and pans for scrap during that time. And I remember coming up here to St. Paul and watching them pull up the streetcar tracks in the front of the building here so they could salvage the iron for the war effort. So the early part of my life was very much covered with St. Paul. In fact, my entire life had a religious background, and I'm thankful for that. Youth minister back then was he wasn't a doctor then, but Paul Vandergriff. He was a terrific youth minister. We had a great MYF, Methodist Youth Fellowship we called it, and experiences there were wonderful. But Paul Shepard came to St. Paul as a youth minister, all under Dr. Hightower, who was still the senior pastor. Some other people that went to St. Paul that were influential in my religious life was Joe and Bill Rawlings. They were counselors which went for the youth group here at St. Paul. And they opened their home to us and said, after we have the youth group on Sunday night, they would invite us to their home. Dr. Shepard was instrumental in my changing from the University of Louisville to go to Union College, which is a Methodist school in Barberville, Kentucky. So here again, the church influenced my life in college. I became a better person there. I had more presence in myself and became more confident in myself. And I never will forget that and thank Paul Shepard for guiding me there. Some other people that influenced my life from here, St. Paul, Mr. Grubbs, who was the started the LOA class. I think they call themselves Love One Another. But he was a great man too, and I never will forget the love and that he offered everyone here at St. Paul, including me. If I ever had a problem, I knew I could go to him and get help. Dr. Shepard came back as senior pastor here at St. Paul then, and I remember becoming the chairman of the board of St. Paul for a couple of years and having to learn about all the trials and tribulations, the problems that are involved in running a church and trying to help solve them. And that was quite an experience being chairman of the board. While I was chairman of the board, Dr. Emil McAdams came to church, and I remember introducing him to the congregation as Big Mac. So he was a great man, and we enjoyed him very much. But looking back, my entire life evolved around the church, especially St. Paul Church, and has meant an awful lot to me in my life and my children, and a lot of other people who attended the motet singers here. And I'm just so thankful that I was able to find a place where I could fall on my knees when I had to in the sanctuary and pray for help and guidance of some of the real bad things that happen in your life. Like I remember my divorce. I remember losing my job at WHAS. I remember other problems in motet where I had to get on my knees and just ask for help. And it was always there. Thank you, St. Paul.